Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another wonderful week of Math for First Grade. In today's lesson, we will be talking about equal parts. That's right, we will talk about equal parts in today's lesson. Come on, mathematicians, and let's jump into our lesson. Thank you for joining in with us today. My name is Mrs. Ward, and I am a kindergarten first grade teacher for the HISD school district. For today's lesson, you will need your pencil and paper. We will go through our introduction and warm up, the vocabulary, and our math lesson. The topic that we will focus on today is partition two-dimensional figures into 2 and 4 fair shares or equal parts, and describe the parts using words. The main objective we will be covering is the student will be able to identify equal and unequal parts, including halves and including fourths. All right, mathematicians, let's jump into our lesson. I want you to take a look at this robot. If you've been tuning in with us, you know the past couple of weeks we have been talking about 2 and 3-dimensional figures. Take a look at this robot. When you see this robot, do you see any 2 or 3-dimensional shapes in this picture? Yes, what shapes do you see in this picture? A triangle. Where's the triangle? On his head. The hat is a triangle. What other 2 or 3-dimensional shapes do you see? His eyes are circles. Yes, the eyes are circles. What about his head? His head could be a circle, or it looks like it could even be a spear. What about his body? His body is a rectangle. Good work. Look at his arms. Do you know what shape his arms are? It's kind of tricky. That one starts with the, you guessed it. That one I was going to say starts with the R. Yes, it is a rhombus. And what about the feet? What shape are the feet of this robot? A square. Give yourself a pat on the back. These are just a few of the shapes that we have seen in our previous lessons. We're going to be using these shapes in today's lessons as we look at equal and unequal parts. Here is some of the vocabulary that you're going to hear in today's lesson. You're going to hear words like equal parts, fourth, half, partition. Boys and girls, I have decided to share my candy bar. Today, I'm going to share my candy bar with Erin. We're going to pretend this is my candy bar. She said she wanted me to give her some, so I'm going to share it. Do you see my candy bar? I'm going to give her half and I'll keep half. So I don't have a knife. I'm just going to tear it. And now I have 2 pieces. 1 piece for me, and 1 piece for Aaron. I shared the candy bar. Here, Aaron, here is your piece. Why are you looking sad? What's wrong with your piece?
Mine is little.
She said hers is too little. But it's 2 pieces. Look, I have a piece and you have a piece. What's wrong with your piece?
It's not like yours because it's tiny.
She said hers is too tiny. You mean they're not equal? Can't hear you. They're not equal? No, she said they're not equal. You don't think this piece is fair with your piece? No. Let's take a closer look at what is a fair share. I think it's fair. It's 2 pieces. I got a piece. She got a piece. Now she has a sad face. Let's take a closer look at what does it mean to have equal, unequal, and fair shares. As we begin our introduction to fractions, I want you to think about what does it mean to be equal or unequal. Have you ever heard the term equal before? If something is equal, that means it is the same. It's the same amount. Take a look at this clip as we look at equal and unequal parts. We're not going to see the whole video, but we're just going to introduce those equal and unequal parts.
Hello, boys and girls. Have you ever had to share with a sister or brother, or maybe even a friend at school? Today, my daughter asked me to share an orange with her. I told her we could share the orange, just be sure to cut it into 2 equal pieces. She went into the kitchen and got the orange. She came back with a piece for herself and a piece for me. Here is the 2 pieces that she cut. Do you notice something wrong with the pieces that she cut? Yes, she cut 2 pieces, but are these 2 equal pieces?
Do you notice something wrong with the 2 pieces that she cut? What do you see that is wrong with these 2 pieces? There's a big one and a little one. So what does that mean? They're not the same. They're not the same. So they're not the same. Can they be equal? No. When you want to share with someone, you want to make sure you're getting equal shares or fair shares. If mom says for you to share this orange with your brother, but you get a little piece and he gets a big piece, is that fair?
No.
No. Today we're going to be looking at equal and fair shares. Let's keep watching.
Equal means that they are the same. Clearly, you can tell that these 2 pieces are not the same. After looking at the orange that she brought me, I knew we needed to talk about equal and unequal parts. Today, we're going to be taking an introduction to fractions. We will be looking at equal and unequal parts. Ms. Ward has prepared a Powtoon video for you. At the end of this video, you will have activities to complete. You will also be able to go on to Mayan and find a book on fractions or equal parts or unequal parts. Stay tuned. And don't forget, before we begin, pause the video, grab a sheet of paper, a pencil, and some crayons. You will need the paper to take notes during the video and the pencil to write. You will use the crayons at the end of the video. I hope you learn a lot about equal and unequal parts. Let's get ready to learn. Partitioning a whole. An introduction to fractions. Today, we are going to learn about fractions. A fraction is a number that is used to show how many equal parts there are. When writing a fraction, we put one number above another number with a line between them. We call the top number a numerator. A numerator tells us how many parts we're talking about. The bottom number is the denominator. It tells us how many parts there are all together. Say the word partition. There are 3 syllables in the word partition. Partition is just a fancy word that means to cut, separate, or divide. When you partition an object into 2 equal pieces, you create halves. Can you identify which picture correctly shows all halves? Remember, halves are 2 equal parts. If you pick picture A, give yourself 2 claps and 2 snaps, because that is correct. Identify which objects correctly represent halves. You should have said the square, the heart, and the star. Just in case you were wondering, the shirt and the world cannot be halves because they are not partitioned into
2 equal parts. When we look at the shirt, there is a line in the middle, but the top and the bottom are not the same. It's not the same amount. And look over at the world. When we look at the world, we can see that the world is not split into equal parts because one part is bigger than the other. Remember, when we're talking about equal and fair shares, the parts have to be the same.
Hello, boys and girls.
It wanted us to watch the video again. Can you help me identify where there are equal parts? We see one shape has already been done for us. Look at the rhombus. On the rhombus, there is a line going straight down the middle of the rhombus to show equal parts. Look here at this cylinder. We added a line to show equal parts on the cylinder. What about the triangle? Where do you think we could put a line to show equal parts? Right, if we want to show equal parts, we want to put the line right down this middle. And last, look at the sphere. Where would we put the line if we want to show equal parts on a sphere? We could put the line right down the middle. In the video we saw, they said to partition shapes into equal parts. We said when you partition something, it means you separate it or cut it or divide it. So today we're looking at how we can partition these items into equal or fair shares or unequal and unfair shares. There is more than one way to divide these items into equal parts. How can we partition these shapes into halves? If we're talking about putting something in half, that means we're talking about separating it into two parts. How could we put the cylinder into halves? You're right, when we put that line in the middle, it will show us half. The top and the bottom are the same size. So here we are representing halves. What about the rhombus? How can we divide this rhombus to separate it or partition it into halves? One way we could partition it into halves is putting the line across the middle. We also could have did a line straight up and down to show halves. What about the triangle? Could we do a line going across the triangle to show halves? No. If we want to show halves for that triangle, that means we should be able to fold it in half and get the same amount. So we have to put the line going straight up and down. Now, do you see a half on each side? Look at this sphere. How can we partition this shape into halves? Halves means each person would get the same amount. We would separate it into two pieces. Here is one way that we could partition this shape into halves. Look at these shapes. How can we change these shapes to partition into fourths? I see my cylinder and sphere are already partitioned into half. But we said fourths means how many pieces? How many equal pieces does it take to make fourths? It takes 4 equal pieces. So that means we have to partition each shape into 4 pieces. Look at the cylinder. We already have it in half. How could we change it to represent fourths? You guessed it. If we put another line through the middle, we can show 4 equal parts. Fourths means there is 4 equal parts. Look at the rhombus. The rhombus has already been divided into halves, but we want to change this shape into fourths. Where could we add a line to show fourths? Yes, we could put a line straight across. Now we have 4 equal pieces. Look at the triangle. Can we partition the triangle into fourths? No, there is no way to cut, separate, or divide this triangle to get 4 equal pieces. So let's look at the sphere. It's already been partitioned into halves. Where should we add the line so that we can partition it into fourths? You guessed it, we can draw a line straight across the middle so that we can have 4 equal pieces. So I went too fast. Now I want you to try it. You're going to try it. On your paper, I want you to draw a sandwich. Now, I don't want you to put lettuce and tomatoes and all of those good, delicious things. I want you to just make a square on your paper to show or represent the sandwich. Can you draw a square on your paper? Ms. Ward is going to give you just a few moments to draw a square on your paper. Remember, a square has all equal sides. Give it seconds. Here you see a square on my paper. Did you make a square on your paper? Where would I want to put a line to show that this square is partitioned into halves? Can you add a line to your square to show that your square has been partitioned into half? I could draw a line down the middle of my square. I could draw a line going across my square. I could even draw a line diagonal on my square. I'm going to put my line here on my sandwich because when I have a sandwich, I like to cut it into triangles. So here I have two pieces showing halves. Where could we add a line to this sandwich to divide it into fourths? We could draw a line going across the other side. And now we have it partitioned into fourths. On your paper, can you show me another square? When we separate the square into halves and fourths, we are modeling equal parts. Can you show me where I can put the line to show unequal parts? Add the line to your paper to show me unequal parts. You have yours? Let me see it. Let's see if they're showing unequal parts. I showed you mine. I didn't put it yet because I didn't want you to copy mine. It's a little, we can't, your line is a little light, we can't see it. Remember, unequal parts is very close. It's a good try. But unequal means it's not the same. So here, if I put my line here, is this equal parts?
Yes.
Is this equal?
No.
No, because it's not the same. Is one side bigger than the other? Yes. Can you show me unequal parts on yours? Remember, unequal means it is not the same. Not the same. All right, one of my students is going to try to show you their picture that is unequal parts. Let's see if it's correct. Look at hers. Are the two pieces the same? No. So this is a great example of unequal parts. Ms. Ward is going to zoom in just a little bit because it was written with a pencil, so it's a little hard to see. Let's give her 2 claps, 2 snaps. Did you make unequal parts on your paper? You have it? We're going to see one more. He said he also has unequal parts for us. Are the 2 parts the same? No. So does this represent unequal?
No.
Yes, this is unequal because they are not the same. If I take my sheet of paper, boys and girls, look at my sheet of paper. Can you fold your sheet of paper to show equal shares? Remember, equal means it is exactly the same. Ta-da! Trying to open it so you can see it. I folded it in half, and yes, now I have 2 parts that are exactly the same. Now let's review what we learned today. Let's see if you were listening. In today's lesson, we talked about partition. What's the word? Partition. We said to partition means to cut, separate, or divide something. We also talked about equal parts. Equal parts means it is a fair share. It is the same. We talked about unequal parts. Unequal parts means it is not the same. We talked about halves. Halves means to take something and separate it into 2. And we talked about fourths. Fourths means to take something and partition it into 4 equal parts. Today, boys and girls, we learned about equal and unequal, fair shares and unfair shares. If you remember in the video, we said at the end of the lesson, you would be able to go to Mayon and find a book that you can read about fractions. And if you are a student in HISD, you know you already have access through your digital resources to go in and pull up those books. Remember, readers are leaders. You did a great job participating today, mathematicians. We enjoyed working with you and cannot wait to see you again on next time. Thanks for joining, and I hope to see you again next time.